tables are cool, but what if one had lore? As you couldn't tell, today we're making a table inspired by the world of The Witcher. My name is Grayson, and this is Skilltree Studios. Let's craft some legendary loot. Wow. If you don't mind, I have a Gwent game to win, and you have a crafting video to watch. See you in a few. Alright, so before we get started, a little bit of context here. Hi, this is me, Grayson. Yeah, this guy right here. I haven't done anything quite like this before. Don't get me wrong, I love a good affordable IKEA bookshelf. But I want to try and create something truly epic. I want to make functional art that tells a story, something that reminds you of another world. I want an elf or a dwarf to walk into my living room and say,
"From where did you procure the table?"
Unfortunately, not everything goes according to plan. Yeah, that's a lot of scratches. But we aren't there yet, so let's dive right in. For my first project, I opted to go with black walnut for my medium. First thing we have to do is square up the ends. Simple enough.
Straight home.
I'm an idiot. I'm trying to vacuum.
That's what I was wondering.
As much as every fiber in my being wants to tell you everything went perfectly, I'm not going to shy away from my mistakes during this build. It's like everything else in life. If you want to level up a skill, you got to start by gaining experience. Now that we have it properly squared off, let's remove this bark. I used a chisel for this at first, but it didn't get into the grooves like I was hoping it would. The edge was flat enough that I opted to use an orbital sander, though for next time I'm going to go with a wire wheel or nylon brush to better preserve the wood's character. Alright, so we have the first thing, wood. Now we need the second thing, which is obviously swords. Throughout the series, Geralt carries two swords, a silver for monsters and a steel one for humans. I went with a model that resembles his iconic silver sword and Witcher medallion. Good news, I remembered mold release. Less good news. I oversprayed and got some of it on the floor. Then I slipped like it was a patch of ice. Actual footage of me about 2 minutes later. So after falling on my butt, I positioned the wood where I wanted it, and used clamps to keep the wood from floating in the epoxy. For the resin today, I'm going with Super Clear's liquid glass deep pour epoxy. This stuff is crystal clear and works great. Now after overfilling it a little bit, I'm going to thoroughly and gently mix it. Gently. Gently.
Gently!
And there was never any doubt. Once the rest is thoroughly mixed, I put it in a vacuum chamber to help pull all those pesky bubbles out so we don't get microbubbles trapped inside the epoxy when it cures. For the background color, I opted to go with a smoky gray. I pulled the inspiration for this from how Geralt ends up looking after his fight with the Kikimora in the opening episode of the Netflix Witcher series. Plus, this would give the rest of our composition a good background to stand out against. After cleaning off anywhere we don't want epoxy, I used a torch to pop any bubbles that came to the surface, and once all fire was removed from the equation, I sprayed the surface with some isopropyl alcohol to get this cool organic cellular texture. To frame the composition, I wrapped his Witcher medallion around the blade, and I framed it with silk lilacs for his favorite sorceress. Once I had everything roughly laid out where I wanted it, I noticed the hilt of the dagger and the top of the medallion were both a little bit too tall for the space I had available. So I took a Dremel and ground out a slot for the dagger hilt and swapped out the Witcher 3 medallion for one with a lower profile. I'm going to save you from this horrid sound. After about a week, the epoxy is cured. I roughed up the surface with some 120 grit sandpaper to create a stronger mechanical bond for the next layer and avoid any visible layer lines or delamination. Next, I'm going to go through and vacuum out all the little particles because we don't want any floaters in our project. And then I'm going to wipe everything down with our friend isopropyl alcohol and clean it and prepare the surface. And once everything is arranged and glued down, it's time for a little montage. While we waited a week for the epoxy to cure, my wife Rebecca and I rescued a new little family member. This is Athena. Say hi. Alright, it's been a week and the epoxy is fully cured. If you want to know what the other side is here, this is project number 2, and you'll just have to subscribe to see that one. I don't make the rules. This is my friend Andrew and I attempting to get this thing out of the mold. Even with mold release, it took some elbow grease. And wouldn't you know it, right when I turned the camera off, it fell out on its own. Perfectly done.
Wait, you stopped it, bro? Yeah, I stopped it for that.
As I didn't have a planer at the time of this video, my buddy Hal Spencer's Woodsmithing was kind enough to flatten it for me. He's done some cool projects for Hives for Heroes, a group that helps save both the bees and the veterans. His work is beautiful. I put a link to his page in the description if you'd like to check it out. As you can see by my lack of dust collection, it gets a bit snowy in here.
Winds howling.
There we go.
Now that she's all squared off and the snow is cleared, I'll also go through and fill these little chips with CA glue. Despite my precautions, I still didn't leave quite enough room here and shaved down a piece of the dagger hilt. But that's something I know for next time, so experience gained. Since I like you, we're going to skip past the riveting process of filling in all these tiny little holes. Don't mind Alfred, my Roomba in the corner there. Here I'm setting out a tarp and getting ready to pour a top coat to seal everything in. I'll be pouring a layer at the bottom first and damming it up with Tyvek tape. Once everything is set out on the table and positioned, I'm going to pour Super Clear's tabletop epoxy. This stuff is really high quality, even if it always takes me a second to figure out how a 2-to-1 ratio works. Alright, time for a slow motion pour. As much as I wanted this to be a satisfying tape pull, I'm a one-man show and it's a lot harder with one hand. Come on, so close. So close. Next, we're going to knock down this sharp edge and get rid of this tape residue. For this, we're using our friend isopropyl alcohol. I usually use 91 to 99%. I gotta say, I know this is just the bottom, but this wood grain is genuinely gorgeous. We're making sure to blow off our sander and swap out the sandpaper to avoid scratching anything. And once it's all wiped off, we're going to go ahead and do another pour and get that top taken care of. After making sure it's level, I found the best way to spread tabletop epoxy is either with a scraper or with gloved hands. Here I opt for the finger painting method. Once our bubbles have all been popped, we'll let that cure. We get a little hint of how the finished project might look when we're done. I gotta say, the way the light catches the blade is just unreal. I am so happy with that. As much as I wanted to just leave it like this and put legs on it, you can see there are still waves in the surface of the table, so I sent it back to the sanding room. Now for a quick cleanup. But wait, we're still missing something, right? Oh yeah, table legs, duh. For the table legs, I wanted to take inspiration from something in Witcher lore called signs. This is how witchers use rudimentary magic to shoot fire, protect themselves, or create a magical trap. And did I mention it allows them to shoot fire? But these symbols allow them to do cool things like this. So I immediately started searching the internet. No. Cool table legs. After some searching, I found these legs that perfectly match the Irden sign. One that allows Geralt to deal with specters and slow enemies. These would be perfect for what I needed. Now that that's solved, it's time for more sanding.
Nope.
Now with the table fully polished and finished, all that's left to do is attach the legs. To attach the legs, I'm using stainless steel threaded inserts to allow them to be removable if needed. It's here that I learned several important lessons and my heart dropped into my stomach. The first of which was, don't do this.
Balls.
After putting that big scratch in the table, I flipped it over to find that the sanding and polishing I had just spent hours doing had left pigtails in the top of the table. And even better, I hadn't accounted for the slope of the live edge and drilled a very visible hole through the top of my table. So after these 3 wonderful discoveries, I grabbed some mica powder that matched the wood grain and went outside to sit in the sun and reflect for a bit to think about how I could fix this. I wanted so badly for this project to go perfectly. I had done thousands of hours of research, planned everything out, and despite that, I still didn't make the right choices. While I was outside, I thought about what exactly it was that made my journey through the Witcher series so impactful, why it left such a big impression on me. Throughout the series, Geralt is constantly faced with difficult choices. Choices where there is almost never a clear answer, or an answer without risk. The decisions you make as Geralt have meaningful and permanent consequences, and as much as Geralt tries to stay out of it entirely, he rarely can. He could just take the gold and be on his way.
Don't meddle. Take the reward and let's go.
The thing that makes Geralt so memorable for me is that even when every choice comes with a consequence, he doesn't let the fear of making the wrong choice stop him from trying anyway. And even when he does make the wrong choice, he tries to make the best of it. The Witcher series taught me that no choice will ever be perfect, but that shouldn't stop you from choosing anyway. And with that in mind, even if you can't make it perfect, make it, and then make it better. First up, the overdrill in the table. I poured a little bit of color-matched epoxy into the hole, being careful not to hit the threads, and then cleaning the threads after just to be safe. It's not a flawless match, but it looks much better. Now it's time to fix that scratch and those pesky pigtails. I resanded from 120 grit back up to 2000 grit. It took experimenting with a lot of different types of sandpaper in 3 different attempts, but after the 3rd attempt, I finally nailed it. To finish, I used Meguiar's for polish and Blacktail Studios N3 Nano ceramic coating to make sure the table is protected. If you want to know what products I used for this project, I linked all of them in my Amazon affiliate list down below in the description. If it's something you need to get anyways and you order through that link, it helps me out and I appreciate it. With that being said, it's time for the final reveal. thank you for watching to the end of the video. You're the best. And I have so many more videos coming and multiple projects already in the works. I can't wait to show you. Now, if you don't mind, I have a Gwent game to win, and then I probably have Siri to rescue, but she can wait. There's always time for Gwent. Bye. Thank you for sticking around. Here's some links to more videos if you'd like to check them out.